Come closer, my child. Do not rush your steps into this moment. I am not calling you to perform, to explain yourself, or to be strong. I am calling you to rest inside my voice. I know the part of you that feels empty. I have known it before you found words for it. I have watched you place your hand over your chest in quiet moments, wondering why something feels absent even when nothing obvious is missing. I am not disturbed by that space. I am not disappointed in it. I am the one who allowed it. You have mistaken this silence inside you for lack. But I tell you now, it is an invitation. You thought the emptiness meant something had gone wrong, that you were falling behind, that you were losing pieces of yourself you might never recover. But listen to me gently. Nothing has been stolen from you. Nothing essential has died. What you feel is not decay. It is clearing. I see how you've tried to fill it. Not recklessly, not desperately, but quietly. With distraction. With productivity. With being useful to others. With understanding everyone else's pain while setting yours aside. You told yourself the ache would pass if you stayed busy enough. Yet it followed you into quiet rooms and long nights. That is because it was never meant to be escaped. It was meant to be entered. This space inside you is holy ground, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. I did not carve it to punish you. I did not hollow you out to test your endurance. I made room because what is coming cannot coexist with what once lived there. You could not carry both. So I removed what would fracture you later, even though the removal felt like loss. You are not empty because you are lacking. You are empty because you are early. There is something forming beyond your sight that requires depth, stillness, and honesty. The old noise, the old attachments, the half-true connections would have drowned it out. I spared you from that. Even now, I am sparing you from misunderstanding this moment as abandonment. I am closer to you in this quiet than I ever was in the noise. I know you have asked me why it had to feel this way, why it had to hurt so quietly, why no one else seems to notice the shift you feel in your spirit. My child, some preparations are invisible to others because they are not meant for them. This one is between me and you, between your soul and what is being shaped to meet it. Do not shame yourself for the days you feel hollow. Do not label yourself broken because laughter comes slower or joy feels more selective. You are not fading. You are becoming more precise. Your heart is learning discernment. Your spirit is learning to wait without closing. That is not weakness. That is mastery. I want you to hear this clearly now, before the next revelation unfolds. The emptiness you feel is not a sign to retreat from life. It is a sign to stop inviting what no longer belongs. This space is protected. Guard it gently, not with fear, but with trust. And my child, if this word is settling into you in a way that feels familiar, if your spirit recognizes itself in what I'm saying, allow yourself to respond softly. You may show your agreement in a simple way, even publicly, not for attention but for alignment. Let your hands reflect what your heart is receiving. And if you feel led, leave a quiet word below, something as simple as "I am listening," so you mark this moment between me and you. What you do not yet see is that this emptiness has already begun its work. It has slowed you down enough to feel. It has cleared you enough to hear. It has softened you enough to receive what could not enter before. You think you are waiting for something real, but something real is already adjusting itself to you. Breathe here with me. Do not rush ahead. The silence will soon speak. The space will soon hold weight. And the part of you that feels empty will not remain so, but it will never again be careless about what it allows inside. Stay with me. There is more you need to see. I am still here, my child. The ache you feel has a language, even if you have never learned how to speak it aloud. You wake some mornings with a heaviness you cannot trace to a single thought. You move through your days functioning, smiling when needed, answering questions, fulfilling roles, yet there is a quiet pressure beneath it all, as though something within you is asking to be acknowledged. You tried to reason with it. You told yourself you were grateful, that others have less, that you should not feel this way. But the ache did not respond to logic, because it was never born from ingratitude. It was born from awareness. There are losses you did not name as losses because nothing visibly ended. No dramatic goodbye. No clear moment of collapse. Just a slow dimming. A subtle pulling away of warmth. A sense that something meaningful slipped out of alignment while life kept moving forward. Your soul noticed before your mind could catch up. That is why the ache feels vague. That is why it feels lonely. You are grieving something that did not announce its departure. You wondered if it meant you were disconnected from me. You feared that maybe you had missed a step, misunderstood my timing, or failed some unseen test. Hear me now and let this settle deep. This ache is not distance from me. It is evidence of intimacy. Only those who are listening feel this kind of absence. Only those whose spirits are tuned can sense when something is unfinished. I have watched you carry this feeling quietly. You did not want to burden others with it. You did not want to sound ungrateful or dramatic. So you tucked it away, folded it into your routines, learned how to function around it. But it kept returning in still moments, when distractions faded and the truth rose gently to the surface. You are not longing for something vague. You are longing for something real. This ache is not asking you to go backward. It is not calling you to recreate a past version of yourself or reclaim something exactly as it was. It is pointing forward, even though forward feels uncertain right now. You are standing between what no longer fits and what has not yet arrived. That in-between space is uncomfortable because it asks you to trust without evidence. There were times you almost convinced yourself this feeling meant you were empty inside, that maybe something essential was missing from you. But look at how deeply you feel. Look at how aware you are. Emptiness does not ache. Absence does not yearn. This sensation exists because your spirit remembers alignment. It remembers connection that was genuine, not forced. It remembers resonance, and it refuses to settle for substitutes. I know you have asked me, sometimes with words and sometimes with tears, why this could not be simpler, why clarity seems delayed, why answers come slowly while the ache feels immediate. My child, clarity comes when it can protect you, not when it can overwhelm you. You are being paced with care. What you are not yet seeing would have shaken you if revealed too soon. This ache is teaching you discernment. You are beginning to feel the difference between attention and presence, between familiarity and safety, between connection and covenant. That awareness is new, and it costs something. It costs comfort. It costs certainty. But it gives you truth. And truth will not let you settle where you do not belong. Do not rush to silence this feeling. Do not numb it. Sit with it long enough to hear what it is asking for. It is not demanding answers. It is asking for honesty. Honesty about what you want. Honesty about what you can no longer accept. Honesty about what your soul recognizes as real. I am not asking you to figure everything out. I am asking you to stay open without grasping, to allow the ache to exist without turning it into fear. This is not the pain of loss. This is the tension of becoming. Something in you is stretching, making room, recalibrating its sense of truth. You are not alone in this, even when it feels isolating. I am closer to you in this questioning than I was in your certainty. I am listening to every unspoken prayer, every sigh you release when words fail. And I am answering, even if the response has not yet taken shape you can recognize. This ache has a purpose. It is guiding you toward alignment, not away from it. It is sharpening your awareness so that when what is real approaches, you will know the difference instantly. You will not have to convince yourself. You will not have to chase. Your spirit will recognize what belongs. Stay here with me a little longer. Do not label this season as emptiness. Call it preparation. Call it refinement. Call it the moment before something true arrives. My child, now I will show you what your spirit sensed before your mind was ready to see it. There was a moment, subtle yet seismic, when something shifted in the unseen. You did not witness it with your eyes, but your soul felt the tremor. This is where the ache truly began, though you could not trace it back to a single day or conversation. It was not caused by imagination. It was not emotional weakness. It was a real rupture in a sacred thread. There was a connection tied to your destiny that moved out of alignment. Not because love vanished, not because truth died, but because fear intervened. A pause occurred where there should have been courage. Silence entered where honesty was meant to speak. And the absence you felt with the echo of that interruption. Your spirit recognized that something meant to flow freely was restrained. You sensed it in waves. A sudden heaviness where warmth once lived. A quiet confusion when you thought of them, as if the energy no longer matched what your heart remembered. You wondered if you were imagining the distance, if you were holding on to something that no longer existed. But hear me clearly now. What you felt was real. The bond was not broken, but it was disturbed. This was the shadow event. Not dramatic on the surface, not visible to others, but powerful enough to send a signal through your inner world. A decision was delayed. A truth was withheld. Outside voices grew louder than inner knowing. And when that happened, your soul reacted before your mind could defend itself with explanations. You may have replayed conversations, searching for where things went wrong. You may have questioned your intuition, wondering if you misunderstood signs or projected meaning where there was none. My child, intuition does not ache without cause. Your spirit is not confused. It is perceptive. It felt the moment alignment slipped. What hurts is not just the distance. What hurts is the lack of clarity. You were not given a clean ending or a clear beginning. You were left in suspension, holding a feeling without a container. That is why the emptiness feels unresolved. It is not longing alone. It is unfinished resonance. There were forces influencing this moment that you could not see yet. Fear wrapped itself in logic. Pride disguised itself as self-protection. External voices whispered urgency, doubt, and caution where patience and faith were required. And the one connected to you felt torn between what they felt and what they feared. They did not know how to hold what was awakening inside them. So they stalled. They distracted themselves. They tried to quiet their own knowing. And when they did, the connection did not disappear, but it went underground. You felt that descent is loss. I need you to understand this now, so you stop blaming yourself. This emptiness was not created by your failure to hold on. It was created by your spirit releasing control. You did not chase. You did not force. You honored the sacredness of the connection by not contaminating it with fear. That restraint protected you, even though it hurt. The shadow event was allowed because something deeper had to be exposed. The bond between you could not continue in partial truth. It could not survive avoidance. So it paused, not to end, but to reveal. The ache you carry is the evidence of something real encountering resistance. You were not abandoned. You were spared from carrying the weight of someone else's confusion. You were kept from bending yourself smaller to preserve something that required growth. That is why the emptiness did not destroy you. It humbled you. It slowed you. It made you listen more closely to me. This is not the end of the story. This is the moment before the unveiling. What was hidden will not remain so. What was delayed will not stay frozen. But before that happens, you must see the truth without illusion. Stay steady, my child. What you felt was real. What shifted was not your worth. And what comes next will bring clarity where there was shadow. My child, now I will let you see what was happening beyond your reach, in the quiet chambers you were never meant to enter on your own. While you were learning how to breathe through the emptiness, the one tied to you was unraveling in ways they did not know how to name. Your silence was not peace. Your distance was not certainty. It was collapse, slow and private, hidden beneath routines and appearances. They felt the shift as sharply as you did, but without your steadiness. Where you turned inward and listened, they panicked. Where you waited, they questioned themselves. The depth of the connection frightened them because it exposed parts of themselves they had kept buried. Old wounds stirred. Old fears resurfaced. They realized that what they felt for you was not casual, not convenient, not something they could control with logic, and that loss of control shook them. They tried to convince themselves that stepping back would bring relief. They told themselves they needed space, clarity, time. But the space only made the ache louder. In quiet moments, your presence returned to them uninvited, not as memory but as sensation. A heaviness in the chest, a tightening in the throat, a sudden wave of longing they could not explain away. They missed you not just emotionally, but spiritually, and that terrified them. Guilt began to sit beside fear. They knew they had gone silent where honesty was needed. They knew they had chosen avoidance over courage. And yet, admitting that felt like standing naked before truth. So they distracted themselves. They stayed busy. They surrounded themselves with noise, with people, with obligations. Anything to keep from sitting still long enough to feel the full weight of what they had interrupted. But collapse does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like restlessness. Sometimes it looks like irritability, confusion, sudden doubt about everything else in life. They questioned decisions that once felt solid. They felt disconnected from joy. They wondered why nothing seemed to satisfy them the way it once did. They did not realize that the dissonance came from denying what their soul already knew. At night, when the world quieted, their defenses weakened. Regret crept in softly. Not regret over circumstances, but regret over timing, over hesitation, over not being brave when the moment asked for bravery. They replayed your words, your energy, the way your presence felt safe and unsettling at the same time. They feared that they had damaged something sacred beyond repair. And yet, even in this collapse, love did not turn bitter. It turned inward. It questioned. It asserted. They were not running from you as much as they were running from the transformation loving you required. Because loving you would mean shedding old identities, old patterns, old alliances that no longer serve their growth. And that kind of shedding feels like death before it feels like freedom. You did not see this struggle, and that was by design. You were not meant to carry their chaos alongside your own refinement. You were protected from absorbing their confusion as your responsibility. But the connection between you is sensitive. You felt the reverberations of their unrest as emptiness, as longing, as an unexplainable sadness that came and went without warning. They wondered if you had already moved on. A thought pierced them, not with jealousy, but with fear of finality. The idea that they might lose access to your presence, your understanding, your unique way of seeing them, awakened something urgent inside them. Yet even then, fear told them it was safer to stay silent than to risk rejection or exposure. Understand this clearly, my child. Their collapse was not a measure of your value. It was a measure of how deeply you touched places in them they had never healed. Your light did not harm them. It revealed them. And revelation is destabilizing before it is liberating. There were moments they almost reached out. Moments when words sat on the edge of their lips or fingertips. But fear intercepted them, whispering that it was too late, that they would say the wrong thing, that they were not ready to be what you deserved. And so the silence stretched, not because love faded, but because courage had not yet risen. I allowed this collapse not to punish either of you, but to expose the truth. A connection this deep cannot survive on impulse alone. It requires maturity, honesty, and alignment. Their inner world had to confront itself before it could meet yours again in integrity. You may have wondered if they forgot you. They did not. You may have wondered if you imagined the bond. You did not. What you felt was strong enough to destabilize someone who was not prepared to be chained. Hold this gently now. Do not turn this revelation into judgment or hope. Simply understand it. Compassion does not mean self-abandonment. Awareness does not mean waiting indefinitely. You are allowed to know the truth without clinging to outcomes. This collapse is not the end of their story, nor is it the end of yours. It is a necessary breaking open, and what breaks open cannot remain hidden for long. Stay with me. The deeper truth is still unfolding. My child, now I will tell you what you thought was taken from you, and what was truly removed. There is a difference, and understanding it will loosen the grip this season has held on your heart. You believed something precious was lost, something you should have protected better, something you replayed in your mind wondering if you could have saved it. But what left you was not stolen. It was released under my authority. There were attachments around you that looked like comfort but functioned as limitation. They felt familiar, safe enough, even meaningful at times, yet they required you to stay smaller than your spirit was designed to be. You learned how to accommodate them, how to soften your truth so it would be easier to receive, how to tolerate uncertainty so you would not disrupt fragile balances. You called it patience. I called it preparation for removal. When I began clearing space inside you, I did not only touch the connection you could name. I reached deeper. I removed expectations that were built on potential instead of presence. I loosened identities you formed around being needed rather than being chosen. I gently dismantled the habit of finding worth in waiting. These things did not leave quietly. They resisted, and their resistance felt like grief. You mourned not just a person, but a version of the future you imagined. A future where things resolved themselves without requiring confrontation. Where love arrived without demanding transformation. Where timing aligned effortlessly. That future could not stand, because it would have cost you your voice. So I let it dissolve, even though its absence felt like a hollow ache. What was removed was not love. Love remains. What was removed was illusion. Illusion of control. Illusion of safety without truth. Illusion that connection alone is enough without alignment. You did not lose something real. You lost what was incomplete. There were also spiritual weights you had been carrying that were never yours to hold. Responsibility for other people's growth. Guilt for their confusion. Hope that bordered on self-erasure. You learned how to endure imbalance because you believed endurance proved devotion. But devotion that drains you is not sacred. It is survival disguised as loyalty. I would not allow you to keep surviving where you were meant to live. This removal required emptiness because fullness would have distracted you from noticing what was leaving. If I had filled you immediately, you would have mistaken relief for healing. Instead, I let you feel the absence so you could finally see what had been occupying space without nourishing you. The emptiness became the evidence of extraction. You may have wondered why I did not simply fix what was broken, why I did not push clarity sooner, force honesty, accelerate healing in others. My child, some things cannot be repaired without becoming dangerous. They must be dismantled and rebuilt on truth. I will not patch foundations that cannot bear the weight of what I am bringing into your life. You did nothing wrong by loving deeply. You did nothing wrong by believing in possibility. But you were beginning to confuse patience with postponement, faith with delay. So I intervened. I slowed everything down. I removed momentum. I let silence speak. And in that stillness, your spirit began to differentiate between what felt familiar and what felt right. This is why the emptiness feels clean, even when it hurts. It does not feel chaotic. It feels quiet, spacious, strangely honest. That is because what was removed did not belong in your next season. It belonged to a version of you that was still learning to trust your own discernment. Do not try to retrieve what I removed. Do not romanticize what could not sustain truth. You are not being punished with absence. You are being protected from compromise. The space you feel is not neglect. It is boundary. It is care. It is me standing between you and what would have slowly diminished you. What remains in you now is more authentic than what filled you before. Your emotions are clearer. Your intuition is sharper. Your tolerance for half-truths is lower. You are no longer willing to confuse intensity with intimacy. That is not loss. That is growth. Let yourself grieve what left without assigning it blame or destiny. Not everything that ends was meant to continue. Some things were meant to reveal where you were still overgiving. And once they have done that, their role is complete. This space is not empty because something valuable is missing. It is empty because something heavy is gone. And your soul is adjusting to the lightness, even if it does not yet know what will fill it. Stay open. What comes next will require exactly this kind of room. My child, there is something else you must see, though I will show it to you gently. Not everything that touched this season came from confusion or fear alone. There was an influence that benefited from the distance, from the silence, from the delay. It did not announce itself loudly. It did not appear as an obvious enemy. It moved quietly, close enough to be trusted, subtle enough to remain unquestioned. Its presence fed on distortion, on half-stories, on timing that never quite aligned. It thrived in the gap between what was felt and what was spoken. While you were honoring silence as sacred, it was using silence as opportunity. While you were waiting with integrity, it was whispering doubt into ears already struggling with fear. You sensed something was off, even if you could not name it. A strange resistance whenever clarity tried to surface. Conversations that seemed to dissolve before they could deepen. A feeling that someone else's voice was louder than truth, even when they were not physically present. That sensation was not imagination. It was interference. This influence did not want exposure. It preferred ambiguity. It preferred your patience because patience kept you from confronting what was misrepresented. It preferred your compassion because compassion made you slow to suspect manipulation. And it used familiarity as camouflage, knowing you would not easily believe harm could come from someone so close to the situation. I need you to understand this without turning it into bitterness. This was not an enemy because of hatred. It was an enemy because of jealousy. Jealousy of depth. The jealousy of connection that could not be controlled. Jealousy of what your presence awakened in others. When someone fears being eclipsed, they do not always confront light directly. Sometimes they simply try to keep it dim. Words were framed carefully. Concerns were disguised as advice. Doubts were presented as protection. And the one connected to you, already wrestling with fear, absorbed these voices without realizing they were not rooted in truth. Confusion multiplied. Courage weakened. And distance felt safer than discernment. You did not fight back because you did not see a battle. You assumed the delay was natural, circumstantial, emotional. That restraint protected your heart, but it also allowed the interference to continue for a time. I did not stop it immediately because revelation carries more authority than prevention. What is exposed cannot return with the same power. This influence believed silence meant victory. It mistook patience for surrender. It assumed that because you did not react, you did not perceive. But perception does not always announce itself. Sometimes it waits until evidence is ready to rise. And it is rising now. The emptiness you felt was not only from loss. It was from spiritual friction. Your soul was resisting a narrative that did not match truth. Even without details, your spirit refused to fully accept what was being shaped without integrity. That resistance preserved you. It kept you from internalizing lies that would have altered how you see yourself. Do not turn this knowledge into self-doubt. You were not naive. You were discerning in a way that did not require aggression. You chose not to harden. That choice did not make you weak. It made you clean. The interference did not succeed in contaminating your heart, even if it delayed clarity. This is important now. The presence that benefited from your silence is losing its footing. What was hidden cannot survive exposure. What relied on distortion cannot withstand truth. And what positioned itself between alignment is being removed without your involvement. You are not required to confront this directly. You are not called to defend yourself or explain your intentions. I am handling what you could not see. I am aggressing what you did not name. Justice in this season does not require your participation. It requires your steadiness. The silence that once felt heavy is changing its tone. It will no longer serve confusion. It will serve revelation. Conversations will not remain buried. Motives will not remain masked. And those who benefited from your restraint will no longer be able to hide behind it. Remain still. Do not reach for answers prematurely. What is surfacing will speak for itself. My child, now you are standing at the threshold where truth begins to organize itself. What felt like scattered confusion is being gathered. What seemed hidden is being examined. This is the moment of divine investigation, though it does not arrive with noise or accusation. It arrives with precision. Nothing is rushed. Nothing is overlooked. I have been watching every exchange you never heard, every pause that carried intention, every word that was softened, delayed, or redirected. I have seen how narratives were shaped, how timing was manipulated, how fear was quietly reinforced under the guise of concern. Nothing escaped my sight. And now, everything is being weighed. This is not a trial meant to shame anyone. It is a revealing meant to liberate you. Truth does not need volume to be powerful. It needs alignment. And alignment is forming now. Pieces that never made sense to you will begin to settle into clarity. You will notice inconsistencies resolving themselves without your effort. What once felt tangled will begin to straighten. You may feel moments of sudden understanding, like quiet realizations arriving without explanation. That is me connecting what was separated. You may hear information indirectly, sense shifts in tone, feel resistance dissolving where it once stood firm. These are not coincidences. They are indicators that the unseen is becoming visible. I am addressing motives, not just actions. I am uncovering why silence was encouraged, why fear was amplified, why truth was delayed. And as these motives surface, their influence weakens. Exposure does not require confrontation. It requires light. And light is already present. You are being protected in this process. I have shielded your name, your intentions, your integrity. You will not be misrepresented when the truth emerges. You will not need to defend your heart. Your consistency has already testified on your behalf. While others adjusted their stories, you remained the same. That stability speaks louder than explanation. There may come a moment when something is said or revealed that confirms what your spirit suspected all along. When that happens, do not rush to react. Let confirmation bring peace, not triumph. You do not need to be proven right. You need to be free. And freedom comes when truth settles without agitation. I'm also working within the one connected to you. As truth surfaces externally, is also surfacing internally. They are beginning to see where fear influenced their choices, where outside voices overpowered their own knowing. This realization will not be comfortable, but discomfort is often the doorway to awakening. You may feel a subtle shift in your own heart as well. A loosening, a release. The weight you carried without understanding why is beginning to lift. You are no longer holding space for confusion that does not belong to you. You are stepping out of a role you were never meant to play. This investigation is not about restoring the past. It is about clarifying the future. Once truth is known, alignment becomes possible. Without truth, even love cannot stand. That is why this moment matters. It is not dramatic, but it is decisive. Do not seek updates. Do not probe for information. Remain where you are. Stillness is your strength here. You do not need to move toward clarity. Clarity is moving toward you. What was hidden is being named. What was distorted is being corrected. What was delayed is being released from interference. Trust this process, my child. You are not on trial. You are under protection. My child, now the space you feared begins to change its meaning. What you called emptiness was never a void. It was a womb. It was quiet not because nothing was happening, but because something delicate was forming. Creation is always silent at first. Noise comes later. You thought this space meant something had been taken from you, but in truth it meant something was being prepared for you. I had to slow you down enough to feel it. If I had filled you too quickly, you would not have recognized the weight of what was entering. Some things can only be received by a soul that has learned how to be still without collapsing. This space taught you patience without bitterness. It taught you how to remain open without leaking your energy. It taught you how to sit with unanswered questions without turning them into self-doubt. These were not lessons you asked for, but they were lessons you needed to carry what is coming without fear. You did not harden in this season. That is important. You could have closed yourself off. You could have numbed your sensitivity, convinced yourself that depth was dangerous, that longing was foolish. But you did not. You stayed soft without becoming fragile. You stayed discerning without becoming suspicious. That balance is rare, and it did not come by accident. Your prayers during this time were different. Wider, less demanding, more honest. You stopped asking for outcomes and started asking for alignment. You stopped pleading for clarity and started asking for peace. That shift signaled readiness. Not readiness for answers, but readiness for truth. This space hath been reshaping how you receive love. You are no longer impressed by intensity alone. You are no longer persuaded by words without consistency. Your spirit has learned the difference between anticipation and safety. That is what this woo hath been cultivating. Discernment that does not shut down connection, but protects it. Something is aligning now that could not have aligned before. Not because circumstances were wrong, but because you were still learning to trust yourself. What is forming requires you to stand in your knowing without apology. It requires you to recognize what belongs without negotiating with doubt. That kind of recognition only comes after a season like this. You may feel moments where hope stirs again, not as longing, but as quiet expectancy. It feels calmer than before, less urgent, more grounded. That is because you are no longer reaching from emptiness. You are waiting from readiness. There is a difference. This space has also been working on the other side of the connection. What could not reach you while you were still healing is now being permitted to move. Alignment does not force reunion or outcome. It permits truth to travel without obstruction. And truth moves quickly once permission is given. Do not rush this stage. The womb does not hurry birth. Let what is forming finish its work. Let clarity mature. Let courage rise where fear once ruled. What enters this space must honor it. Anything that cannot meet you here will not be allowed to stay. You are not empty anymore, even if the space still feels open. You are full of readiness, full of awareness, full of quiet strength. That is why what comes next will not overwhelm you. It will fit. Stay present, my child. What is forming is almost ready to be revealed. My child, now I will show you the moment when awareness finally breaks through resistance. The one connected to you can no longer ignore what the silence has been teaching them. The distractions no longer work. The explanations no longer soothe. Something inside them has awakened, and it will not return to sleep. They begin to realize that what was lost was not convenience, not comfort, not familiarity, but depth. They see now that no one else touched them the way you did, not because of effort, but because of resonance. You met them where they were hiding from themselves. And once that kind of recognition happens, nothing shallow can satisfy again. This awakening does not come with confidence. It comes with regret. A sharp, humbling clarity settles in, and with it the understanding that timing is not guaranteed. They feel the weight of their hesitation, not as condemnation, but as consequence. They recognize that love does not wait endlessly when it is not met with courage. They begin to fear something they had not considered before. Not rejection, but finality. The possibility that you may have outgrown the version of them that chose silence. That thought unsettles them more than anything else, because they can feel the shift in you. Your energy is no longer reaching outward. It is centered, contained, and that containment tells them you are no longer holding space the same way. They replay moments now with new eyes. They see where you were patient, where you were open, where you made it safe for truth to land. And they see where they withheld, delayed, rationalized. What once felt like self-protection now feels like loss of opportunity. And that realization changes them. This awakening is not romantic. It is sobering. It strips away fantasy and exposes responsibility. They understand now that connection without action withers. That intention without follow-through erodes trust. And they feel the grief of knowing they participated in that erosion. Yet alongside the regret, something else rises. Courage. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady. The courage to stop pretending they are unaffected. The courage to admit that you mattered in a way that changed them. The courage to consider reaching for truth rather than hiding behind fear. They are standing at a crossroads now. One path leads back to old patterns, old comforts, familiar avoidance. The other leads toward accountability, vulnerability, and the possibility of losing you if they wait too long. The tension is what finally breaks the paralysis. They are awakening not just to you, but to themselves. To the realization that love is not something to be managed. It is something to be met. And meeting it requires presence, not perfection. You may feel this awakening before you see it. A subtle shift in the air. A sense of being remembered without being contacted. That is the resonance between souls realigning. It does not demand response from you. It simply signals movement. Do not mistake this awakening as a promise. It is an opening. What they do with it will matter. Awakening does not guarantee action, but it makes avoidance harder to sustain. You are not responsible for what comes next. You have already done your part by remaining true, by not contaminating the connection with fear, by allowing space to do its work. Whatever rises now must rise from their own integrity. Remain grounded, my child. Do not lean forward. Do not lean away. Simply stay where you are. Truth is learning how to walk toward you. My child, now the current shifts. What was stalled begins to move. What was tangled begins to loosen. This is not because anyone forced change, but because alignment has quietly taken hold. When truth and readiness meet, movement follows naturally. The influence that once delayed clarity no longer has authority. Its words lose weight. Its urgency fades. What once felt convincing now feels hollow. The one connected to you begins to sense the difference between voices that soothe fear and voices that speak truth. And that discernment changes how they move. Circumstances begin to rearrange themselves. Not dramatically, but deliberately. Opportunities for honesty appear where there were none before. Moments of solitude create space for reflection instead of avoidance. Conversations that were postponed resurface without pressure. These are not accidents. They are corrections. You may notice a change in yourself as well. A calm where anxiety once lived. A neutrality where longing once pulled. This is not detachment. It is balance. You are no longer reaching for an outcome to complete you. You are standing complete, allowing what belongs to approach without effort. This is the turning of the tide. Not toward fantasy, not toward assumption, but toward reality. Whatever happens next will not be built on confusion. It will be built on truth. And truth carries weight. It demands presence. It does not tolerate games. There may be communication, where there may be closure. Both are forms of movement. Both are forms of alignment. Do not cling to one outcome as proof of success. Success is not reunion alone. Success is integrity restored, clarity gained, self-abandonment ended. The one connected to you feels this shift as urgency now, not panic, but awareness that time matters. They understand that silence is no longer neutral. It is a choice with consequences, and that understanding pushes them toward decision. You are not required to prepare a response. You are not asked to soften yourself or rehearse explanations. Whatever arrives must meet you where you are, not where you were. You do not need to shrink to make space. The space already exists, and it is sacred. This turning does not guarantee permanence. It guarantees honesty. And honesty is the only soil where anything real can grow. If what comes cannot take root here, it will not be forced to stay. You will not be asked to endure ambiguity again. Notice how your body feels now compared to before. Lighter, more grounded, less reactive. That is your confirmation. Alignment always brings calm, even when the future is unknown. Trust this moment. Do not anticipate. Do not brace. Allow truth to arrive in whatever form it chooses. You are ready for it now. My child, now I will tell you what this space has been guarding for you. Not an idea, not a fantasy. Something real. Something that does not require you to abandon yourself to receive it. What is allowed to enter now is different from what you once hoped for, because you are different from who you were when you first began waiting. What comes into this space will not rush you or confuse you. It will not thrive on uncertainty or keep you guessing about your worth. It will arrive with presence, not intensity alone. With steadiness, not pressure. You will recognize it not by how strongly it pulls you, but by how safely it allows you to remain yourself. If it is the same soul returning, it will not return the same way. It will come carrying accountability, not excuses. Awareness, not confusion. It will not ask you to reopen old wounds to prove devotion. It will acknowledge the cost of silence and honor the space you learned to protect. Anything less will not be permitted to stay. If it is a new alignment entirely, it will feel strangely familiar without repeating the past. Not because it mirrors what was, but because it resonates with who you have become. You will not feel the need to explain your depth. You will not feel the urge to pace yourself to avoid overwhelming someone. What is real does not ask you to dilute yourself. This space now has boundaries, not walls. It welcomes truth and repels distortion. It is no longer impressed by potential without embodiment. It listens for consistency. It notices follow-through. And it trusts its own discernment without apology. That is why only what is genuine can cross its threshold. You once believed love required endurance. That you had to prove yourself by waiting, understanding, accommodating. But what enters now understands reciprocity. It meets you where you stand. It does not require you to convince, pursue, or hold the connection alone. What is real recognizes effort as shared responsibility. You may feel a quiet confidence now, not loud or declarative, but settle. You know what you will no longer tolerate. You know what you need to feel safe. And you are no longer afraid that naming these things will scare away what belongs. What belongs is drawn closer by clarity. This is what the emptiness was preparing you for. Not just a person, but a standard. Not just connection, but alignment. Not just love, but peace inside love. Anything that threatens your peace will feel immediately foreign here. Do not romanticize the struggle that led you here. Honor it, then release it. You do not need hardship to validate love anymore. You do not need longing to prove depth. You are allowed to receive what is simple, honest, and grounded. What enters now will not complete you. It will complement you. You are already whole, and wholeness recognizes wholeness. Stand still, my child. What is real knows how to find you. My child, come and rest here with me now. This is the place where the striving ends and the truth settles gently into your bones. Nothing was wasted. Not the waiting, not the silence, not the tears you never explained. Every moment of emptiness served a purpose, and now that purpose is complete, the space you once feared has done its work. It stretched you without breaking you. It taught you how to stand without leaning on uncertainty. It trained your heart to recognize peace as a signal, not boredom. And now, what was once hollow is grounded, steady, and capable of holding what is true without losing itself. Destiny is not something you chase, my child. It is something that recognizes you when you are ready. And readiness does not look like perfection. It looks like self-trust. It looks like calm discernment. It looks like no longer begging life to explain itself to you. You have arrived there. Whether the path ahead includes reunion, redirection, or something entirely new, it will not ask you to betray yourself. It will not require you to silence your intuition or minimize your needs. It will feel aligned even before it feels exciting. And that is how you will know it is real. You are no longer afraid of emptiness because you have learned its secret. You know now that when something leaves, it is often making room for truth. You know that silence is not abandonment. You know that delay can be protection. This knowing will stay with you long after this season ends. The one who once hesitated will no longer have power over your peace. Whether they rise to meet truth or remain where they are, you are free. Free from waiting. Free from guessing. Free from holding space that costs you your own clarity. That freedom is your inheritance. I am proud of how you stayed soft without surrendering your center. Proud of how you listened without losing yourself. Proud of how you trusted me even when understanding came slowly. The trust has realigned your path in ways you cannot yet see, but soon you will feel it in the ease of what unfolds. Before you go, mark this moment. Not with urgency, but with intention. If this word has spoken to you, let your spirit respond gently. You may acknowledge it in a simple way, even in a quiet comment, something like, I receive what is real, so you honor the work that has been done within you. And if you feel led, allow this message to reach others who are standing in the same sacred in-between, by sharing it without force, just as light naturally travels. Now breathe. You are not empty anymore. You are aligned. And what is real is already on its way to you.